Hi guys, Rachel is Spunky Misfit Girl here. I have seen a ton of questions lately in the junk journal groups about glue. Everybody's asking, what kind of glue do you use? Especially when they're brand new to doing this. And I've kind of gone through a process where I'm using different stuff now than I was when I started. So I thought I would just kind of go through that process a little and help you out with some kind of understanding about what different kinds of adhesives are good for what kinds of things. So I started out because I had been bullet journaling. I started using these different kinds of tape runners, and they're really fun and easy to use, and it's really nice because they're not wet. So with paper, they lay flat, there's never any mess, and that's really nice. However, the big problem with these is that they don't stay stuck. They come up really easily, and I was finding that with a lot of my journals, things were not staying put. And given that I'm selling most of what I make now, that just wasn't going to cut it. So I pretty much stopped using those altogether. One of the main things I use in place, which is not as fun to use, it's a little more difficult, but is double-sided tape. And that does seem to stay stuck better. And what I do is I usually use it with another kind of adhesive, a more wet kind of adhesive. So I'll use the tape for the edges, like particularly if I'm putting together an envelope journal, all of the edges of the paper that go down onto the envelopes and putting the envelopes together for the edges, I'll just, pull the size that I need and then cut with my scissors. I have a sticky scissors specifically for that purpose. And that works pretty well. And this is just a brand that I got off of Amazon. So that's nice for my edges. And then I don't have glue running out of the edges because the tape is what's holding those edges. And it seems to bind and stick very well. I haven't so far noticed any problems with it coming up. So I like it for that because it has the same properties as the tape runners with being dry and flat, but it seems to stick better. And so then I use it with either sometimes glue stick, which again is another thing that has kind of some of the same nice properties as the tape runners. It's less wet and fussy. There's less chance of mistakes than with a liquid glue. But again, even though this says permanent, I have found that it just doesn't really seem to hold very well on its own. So when you put it together with the tape, that can be a pretty good hold. So what I'll do is I'll put the tape around the edges and then use the glue stick in the middle, press it all down really well, make sure it adheres, and that works pretty well. And then when I need a better quality liquid glue, Fabri-Tac is my go-to. I've been using that in smaller bottles so that I don't have to deal with the big bottle all the time. I just pour it in to these smaller bottles and use those, and again, usually in addition to either tape or the glue stick, I kind of put them together so that I don't have to put the Fabri-Tac on the edges because it is kind of runny. It can get messy and it shows badly if you get it everywhere. So I kind of use that in the interior of things. And then sometimes when I need pockets, so for example, like this is a pocket, but it's relatively small. And if I use tape on that, the tape's going to be really wide, unless I, kind of cut it in half or something. So probably with this, I would use Fabri-Tac to adhere this pocket just to get a this kind of skinnier line. I have used this glue a little bit too. I've kind of stopped using it at this point. I bought it mainly because it had these little precision tips. It had 2 sizes of tips, which I wanted a skinnier tip, and I've seen some people using this kind of skinnier metal tip that gives a very fine line. But the problem I had with those is that they would clog up, and I would clean them out with little pins, but eventually it just always got to the point where I wasn't able to clean them out, or if I would forget, then the glue would dry in there and it was a nightmare. You couldn't really get it out. So I've basically stopped using that. If anybody has a trick for the skinny, really skinny glue tips, please share, because I have not been able to figure out how to make that work. I also have this stuff, which is not a glue, I guess, exactly. It's a gloss medium. I